Today we're going to kick it off with some NBA news. The two biggest stories, in my opinion, that surfaced over the past couple of days is one, Austin Reaves signing his max extension, 4 years, 185 million with the Los Angeles Lakers, as well as the Minnesota Timberwolves not only dealing Julius Randle out of town to Brooklyn, but dealing for LaMelo Ball, sending Naz Reid to Charlotte. So let's talk about both these deals because they're obviously both in the Western Conference, and I do feel like they're significant. I want to talk first about Austin Reaves because I have said publicly over the past couple of weeks that when you look really long and hard about the Lakers roster, the Austin Reaves decision is not just about Luka. But it is also a LeBron James decision. And now that the Lakers are under new ownership, who of course also own the LA Dodgers, who are very aggressive owners, I think the Lakers are going to have to make some big grown up decisions. Because I've said, as you've watched what's developed since they have acquired Luka Doncic, it's actually very similar to what happened when LeBron first got to LA. You could argue when Luka first came into the league with the Mavs, they have not built the proper roster, around Luka Doncic. In 2024, when the Mavericks made that run, yes, it was Luka and he had Kyrie Irving as a tremendous sidekick, but you look at that roster and it was the likes of Daniel Gafford, and Finley and those bigs. They had so many bigs that they could provide that gave you all the rebounding, and they had a bunch of guys off the wing who could just catch and shoot and score, and really control the rebounding. And Luka, even though he did score a lot of points, sort of let him play the point guard. On this Lakers roster, it is Luka, Austin Reaves, LeBron, and DeAndre Ayton, who has been underwhelming as a number one pick since coming to the league for the Phoenix Suns. And who? And that's the thing where, you watch the Lakers, and yes, it did take them 6 games to beat the Houston Rockets in the first round, and that was without Austin Reaves for the most part. And Luka, obviously that was mostly a LeBron James led effort. But in the second round against OKC, they were in some games, but not really. OKC was just longer, deeper. And again, to me, if you're going to build around Luka Doncic, what I have been saying is over the last couple of weeks, you look really long and hard at Luka's career so far in LA. I get why Nico Harrison, the former president of basketball operations in Dallas, did have some internal concerns about Luka. Not only his attitude, which I have talked about, I think he complains to the officials way too much, way more than almost any other superstar in the NBA. And his dedication, right? His ability to get better. There's some concern in Los Angeles over his weight. That does look valid now. Has his game improved since he came into the league? He's one of the best scorers. He's one of the best passers. He can average a triple double on any given night. But his defense is not there. Which part of the reason why I said in Dallas why they had those wings and those bigs is to complement Luka's weakness. Very similar to when Golden State had, Andre Iguodala, Draymond Green, Zaza Pachulia, David West, Sean Livingston. They had so many different people. Clay Thompson, obviously, defensively. This was even before Kevin Durant, and then even after with Andrew Wiggins. They had so many different people that could play defense that they could hide Steph Curry. Where on this LA team, they don't have that ability. You can't really hide Luka Doncic. So they paid Austin Reaves. Now, obviously, the question is, what is LeBron James going to do? There are all these different rumors and reports. Some say he's definitely coming back to the Lakers. Some say he's definitely not coming back to the Lakers. There's some thought that, oh, he could go to Cleveland or, oh, he could go to Miami. I personally think, being from the land, Cleveland is his best fit. Obviously, based off roster, I think it would be his best chance to win. But I think you look really hard at the West. OKC, San Antonio, Denver, Houston. I think Dallas, with Dusty May, is going to be a really competitive team next year. Portland's on the up and up. Utah's got a really young squad that I think is coming, relatively soon. The Clippers are still in the mix. Phoenix, we'll see what they can do. I mean, there's a lot of good teams out west, and I don't think bringing back this iteration of the Lakers, which they would have to do if they re sign LeBron, would get them even closer to a championship. If I'm the Lakers, it's time to move off LeBron. It's time to get a legitimate big to play with Austin Reaves, who can be sort of Luka Doncic's Kyrie Irving, and rebuild the roster. If I'm the Lakers, I'm saying, LeBron, you got us a title, albeit it was the COVID title, but you got us a title. You brought us relevance. Ever since, the last few years of Kobe, we were a dead franchise with Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram and Kyle Kuzma. You brought us relevance. But this is Luka's team now, and it's time to move on. On the other end of the spectrum, the other team I wanted to talk about out west, a team that I did not mention when I talked about OKC and San Antonio and Houston and all those other teams, because this one specifically is a real interesting one, the Minnesota Timberwolves. I have argued since they lost to San Antonio in the second round of this year's playoffs, and Anthony Edwards was dabbing up Spurs players with about 10 minutes to go in the ball game in game six, that could this Minnesota Timberwolves team be the Buffalo Bills version in the NBA, where the Bills have not been able to get past Kansas City. They've had championship caliber level teams. And I said, is Minnesota going to be able to get past Oklahoma City and San Antonio? And the weird thing about the T Wolves is, I always thought they were a great matchup against Denver because they had Julius Randle or Karl Anthony Towns, of course, a couple years ago in that series that went 7 games, because they had Nash Reed, because they had Gobert, right? They had those bigs that could bang around with Jokic, that could bother Jokic. They had wings and Mike Conley and Jane Daniels, and now they bring in Dante DiVincenzo and all these guys to sort of flood the gates and be very good. They just needed a more dependable second scorer to go along with Anthony Edwards, because as great as Anthony Edwards is, we've seen him disappear in multiple playoff series against OKC, as well as Dallas in the Western Conference Finals. So I said, though, what are the T Wolves going to do? How can they get better? Because, in my opinion, moving off Naz Reid, who I was always fearful, you guys know I was rooting for the Nuggets. You guys know my brother lives in Denver, Colorado. I've sort of adopted the Nuggets as my second team. You guys know that I feel like Nikola Jokic up until these playoffs was the best player in the world. Now I feel like it's Victor Wembanyama. But I always felt like they matched up well against Denver because of the Randall, Naz Reid. I mean, every time I looked up, Naz Reid was just knocking down buckets. And to me, you bring in LaMelo Ball, who was a great story last year for a very up and coming developing Charlotte Hornets team. But the Hornets have Con Knipple now. They have Brandon Miller. And the one guy they decide to move off of is LaMelo Ball, who some people might argue is the most talented out of those three in the trio. But there's been some attitude issues. Obviously, we know what comes with the Ball family, even though LeVar has been mostly out of the picture ever since Lonzo Ball's rookie year. I just don't think this move from Minnesota makes them better. Yes, will Lonzo provide more scoring punch than Julius Randle and even Cal when he was there in Minnesota? Probably he will. But Mike Conley was a great defender. You're not getting as good of a defense. And I think your matchup advantage, which again, the Minnesota GM came over from Denver. I always said that T Wolves team was built to beat Denver. It was not built to beat OKC or San Antonio. And now Minnesota is going to argue Denver is not the team we're trying to beat anymore. We're trying to beat OKC and San Antonio. Okay, but with OKC, right? They get another big in the draft out of Michigan. They bring back Isaiah Harvenstein. Chet Ingram, I believe at this point, is still going to be there unless they try to bring back Kevin Durant or something. Now that Giannis is in Miami, you are not going to match up in size with them. And now, by the way, Jokic has done pretty well against Rudy Gobert, even though Gobert can defend him. And Gobert really struggled against Victor Wembanyama. Nash Reed was the only one who would really put up a fight defensively. So you lose a lot defensively to gain a little bit offensively. And with Dante DiVincenzo out for the year, presumably because of that torn Achilles, I just don't know. This feels like a pullback year for Minnesota. Again, I still think they're a playoff team, but their window, which was seemingly open, and Anthony Edwards is just entering his prime. Is Anthony Edwards going to become the next Kevin Garnett in the city of Minnesota? For T Wolves fans, I hope that's not the case because they're a loyal fan base. They deserve a great team. Basketball is better when the T Wolves are good, but this to me is not a good sign for the T Wolves going forward. I do not like this move. We'll see if I'm proven wrong in the next couple of years. Like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.